So everyone, it's Bowles, and welcome back to another episode or live stream of the weekend forecast. So we've got round 15 coming up here. So we've got a lot of action to get into. We'll have the teams in about roughly 23 minutes for the extended squads for the Sunday teams. So I'm sure that we'll get into that as well throughout the episode. And yeah, we had obviously Thursday night footage. Well, before we get into it, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It'd be very much appreciated. And also, make sure you get your questions in. I'll be answering them at the once we've gone through all the games and stuff. I'll go through them. We've got a couple of questions sent in, so I'll answer them. And yeah, so just a quick update before we get into it. So with the in terms of buys, I have got 3 rookies on my field now. I've got Highmore, Stocker, and Poulter. I've got Stocker and Highmore because I feel safer with them this week over a guy like Bianco. I think that they could score better because they've got better matchups. Highmore against Richmond, Stocker against Crows. I think Stocker's got at least 60 points in 4 of his last 5. Highmore was good last week, and Poulter's been great as well. So they're who I'm rocking with at the moment. Amadi's on my ruck bench, which I'll talk about my trades and why he's on my bench. But yeah, I could only get him on bench this week unless I got rid of someone I didn't necessarily want to get rid of. But that's me. So also leaving comments how you guys are going with your buys, how many rookies you got in field, and what trades you're looking at doing this week, and any other questions stuff. So let's get into it. So last night we had Brisbane and Geelong. A very bit of a spicy game, that one. But I don't think I've ever seen Tom Stewart react the way he did last night when he sort of threw Charlie Cameron down the ground. I said that to my mum last night watching the game. I was just like, I cannot believe that Tom Stewart did that, because I don't usually see him crack under pressure like that. So that was interesting to see. Obviously had the tough job on Charlie Cameron, which obviously affected his score, which we'll get into in a second as well. So start at the top, the big boy, Dane Zorko, 142, massive start, triple double to get the round underway. 12 tackles, 10 marks. Again, just massive impact for the Lions, and I think that I had sort of a little bit of a slight hesitation with Zorko. I knew he was going to be top 6 forward, but I was like, he's over 700k. Do you pay that money with Berry and Neil and all that coming back in the whole brigade? But I think you do. He's been ultra consistent. He's only gone 2 times under 90, I think, this year, 270s. And that was in the first 4 rounds, I think it was, or first 5. So he's just shown he's ultra consistent. And he's got 500 or 600s on in a row. If you had him VC or whatever, you'd 100% take that. And good on someone taking the punt last night. I wouldn't have been gutsy enough to do it, because against Geelong, it's a bit of Geelong and Brisbane are quite restrictive. So I thought it would have been a bit of a low besides him, really, it was what I expected, a low scoring fantasy night for a lot of people. Only 2 people went over 110. The other one was Cam Guthrie in the losing side. I don't think I've seen a poorer effort from a team in quite some time than Geelong last night. I tipped Geelong, last minute decision to tip Geelong. But anyway, Guthrie got himself to a 112. Obviously, if you've got him in team, that's great. I wouldn't be taking it as VC, though. You got plenty of good options coming this round, and if it would have been risky going him as well, as I said, against Brisbane, quite a restrictive team as well. Lachie Neale, what a courageous effort after. I thought he'd done his shoulder, and I thought he was going to be a bit like Josh Dunkley. He's going to be out, but he came on 81 points in the second up, if you don't mind. I don't have him, but I'll be obviously looking at bringing him in next couple of weeks. So I don't know if I'll get him next week. I just want to see how that shoulder plays up next week. A bit like the Dan Houston thing, I want to see how that shoulder went the week after. So I might wait 1 week. I'll bring probably a guy like Dangerfield in, or someone, or maybe a Shannon Hearn, depending on how he goes for the Eagles this week. One of those 2 guys in instead. But Neil's definitely an option to be bringing in. They've got a great run from now to the end of the season. Obviously, I said Dane Zorko, and Jared Lyon's another option. But yeah, so Daniel Rich, 104, good score on field. Not many people got him. I think only about 3 or 4% have got him. So it's a good score for him. Dangerfield looked a bit better. Looked back to sort of more of an explosive self. He turned the ball over a bit. He kicked the ball out of bounds twice, I think, within the first 5 or 6 minutes, which was poor. But there you go. But you bring him in. He's going to be under 650k next week. Had a break in 135, so you bring him in. Jared Lyons, 91. Again, just you pay a lot of money for him, and 91 is probably not exactly what you want from him last night. But at least it was against Geelong, so for a start, it's a hard matchup. And at least when he scores poorly, he gets you a 90. He doesn't get you really anything less than 80. It's ultra consistent. He's reminding me a little bit of Pendlebury. Few years ago, Pendlebury was 110 essentially every week and would rarely go under 95, if at all, under 100. So Yeah, and then Tom Stewart was probably the last one. Bit of a poor score, 51. That's the only slight concern I have, and the reason I love Tom Stewart, one of my favourite players in the AFL outside of the Crows, obviously. And a little bit West Coast. I like West Coast, probably my second team as well. But Tom Stewart, that's the only thing that concerns me with owning him is you pay a lot of money for him and he can occasionally do that lockdown role. We don't see it very often. We maybe see it 1 or 2 times a year, but it's still 1 or 2 times a year too many for me, because that could come in a final when you match up, or could be just in a crucial matchup to maybe get yourself in the 8 or the top 4, or just you just want to beat your maybe it might be your best mate you'd be playing. And it could cost you. But I still think he's great. I'm still a top sort of 8 to 10 defender, but do expect there's going to be 1 or 2 times per year where he probably will do that lockdown role. But hopefully he didn't actually do a too good a job last night. I think Charlie Cameron definitely got the better of him. So hopefully he doesn't do that, and then we can all have him in our sides, because he's great to watch, just +6s all the time, taking kick-ins and whatever. But there you go. Another one I didn't mention on there, because all this is also, want to check out the written version on DT Talk. Make sure you go and do that as well. All this is written down for you. Isaac Smith, another one that I'm potentially looking at. Took some kick-ins. So it looked like he did a little bit of like a Mitch Duncan role last night. So just want to keep an eye on the forward line. Could be a sneaky good option for you. I know that my best mate Ryan has got him, and he's a bit like my Andrew Gaff. He loves watching him score well. But anyway, let's get into the rest of the weekend forecast. Richmond and St Kilda at the MCG. Footy's back in Melbourne, which is good to see. You love to see footy back in Melbourne, MCG in Melbourne, and especially next week, if everything goes to plan, we'll get 85% crowds, which is going to be great. I'm looking forward to being able to watch footy again with full crowds, and hopefully I can contain the Sydney cluster, and we can dog's gone ballistic in the background. Hopefully we can get these clusters sorted, and then we can get past this, and we can just see 100% crowds the footy and just see it for the rest of the year. So, but yeah, hopefully everyone in Sydney and Melbourne are going well after coming out of their clusters, and hopefully coming out of it. Hopefully, I know Sydney are going through them, but yeah. So Dion Preston and Samson Ryan come in for the Tigers. Samson Ryan making his debut, and out goes Josh Caddy, Ralph Smith, and Daniel Rioli. I heard Daniel Rioli's going to a half-back role, so there you go. In the VFL, St Kilda, Ron Marshall's back, so it's a big in for St Kilda. Daniel McKenzie, Tim Membry, and Seb Ross. I got nervous with this when I thought Highmore could have been dropped. He surely couldn't have been dropped after the way he played last game, but you never know. So Jack Bytel's injured. Hunter Clark is also injured as well, so with that the broken jaw with the Dave McKay incident. Nick Caulfield has been dropped. Paul Hunt has been dropped, and Jack Loney's also been dropped. So the 3 main players I'm looking at this game is the first one, obviously Dusty Martin. There's caught some attention in the past from guys like a Luke Dunstan or a Jack Steele or a Seb Ross. Previously, he's only averaging about 9 in his career against St Kilda, which is not as good as his other teams, the other teams he's played against. But I don't think he'll get much attention tonight. Jack Steele doesn't do much tagging. Seb Ross doesn't do tags. More Luke Dunstan, but I think Dusty sort of rotates forward and defence. So maybe gets tagged and lined up by Luke Dunstan in the midfield, and when he goes forward, maybe I'm just trying to think, maybe a guy like maybe a Callum Wilkie goes to Dusty when he's in the forward line. It's just off the top of my head, potentially something like that could happen. I think it won't matter. I think Dusty will be fine. I think he'll still get to his 90-plus score. I think he should be good tonight, and still a value option to bring in. Question's been asked, who do you bring in, Dusty or Pendles? I think it's a bit late. I think you do bring in Pendles. I think Pendles is more value, and it looks like he's playing midfield. So, and I think Pendles can definitely guarantee you 95 pretty much most weeks. Whereas I don't know about Dusty, sometimes can give you 60. So, but bring both in. I've got both now, so, and I'll discuss my trades result with that later. Obviously, Penderbury's probably a guy that, well, no, not probably, is a guy I'm bringing in, and probably a lot of other people bring him in. Tom Highmore, another one I'm looking at closely tonight. Obviously, he is on my field. He's probably on a few other people's fields as well. For the crew, rocking with him still after holding him for half the season, and then finally getting some games over the bars, which is great. Played great last game, the intercepting role, sort of like a Nick Haynes, Jordan Ridley type role, that intercepting defender. And if that can continue, I think he can get some 70-plus scores for you on your field and do it consistently. He's got a couple of good matchups next to. He's got Richmond this week, who do give up some points to defenders, and Collingwood next week. So a couple of good matchups for Tom Highmore, and his break-even's only 10. He should rise in price over the next few weeks. Hopefully get to over 400K by the time he's played Collingwood, after he's played Collingwood, and then you can maybe upgrade him to someone at that point. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at doing anyway. He'll be on my field. I trust him a bit more than guys like Bianco and that this week on my field. And Samson Ryan making his debut. So if you're in need of a ruck guy on your bench, I wouldn't hesitate really in bringing him in. But you've got a guy like Ned Reeves who could be back the next couple of weeks. So maybe if you can try and avoid bringing him in, because I think he's only going to be in for a week or two until Nankervis comes in. Or if he doesn't play well enough, maybe they just go with maybe Ochola again until Nankervis come back. So just want to keep an eye on. If you need to bring a ruck in, then go ahead, go for it. Collingwood, Fremantle at Marvel Stadium. One thing I don't get about this is the roof's going to be open. I know the COVID protocols say that the roof needs to be open, and that's how the health officials work. I don't get too much into all the COVID stuff because I just don't sort of understand a heap of it, and just a heap of stuff is sort of I don't understand with some protocols. But they've got the roof open, and what's expected in this game and the game with the Carlton and Crows on Sunday, potential showers and rain. So not great. Could affect some fantasy scores. Could be good for the ruck pick, actually. Get some extra hit-outs. But could affect some guys in fantasy. But, yeah, let's just hope that it doesn't rain. Or let's hope that they've changed their mind. I don't know. I guess we'll see tomorrow. I don't think they'll change their mind, but I guess we'll find out. But anyway, Collingwood, Taylor Adams comes in. Mason Cox also comes in. And the ruck pick, Brodie Grundy, is back into the side. I held him for all this time. I'd love to be repaid with a 120-plus score this week, but Sean Darcy's a bit of a tough task, so we'll see how that goes. Jordan De Goey is suspended for that hit on Oliver. I saw what happened. I think he's going to go for that. So, yeah, fair enough. Max Lynch dropped. Darcy Moore is injured and is now out probably for the rest of the year, unfortunately for him. Big loss for Collingwood. And Jay Rantel as a Medi sub has also been dropped. Fremantle bring in Nat Fyfe, Griffin Logue, Sam Switkowski, Matt Taberner, and Nathan Wilson all come into the side. I wouldn't be bringing in Fyfe. With that shoulder injury, it's even though he's a mid forward, it's just they could pop out any second. He could just have a shoulder reconstruction. So until we see something from him for a couple of weeks, I wouldn't be looking at bringing him in. Brett Bewley, Connor Blakely, Reece Conker, Mitch Croden, Taylor Demand, and Joel Weston have all been dropped. Jeez, Connor Blakely can't catch a trick, can he? Really can't. If he leaves for a Melbourne club next week, he's going to be priced under 300k because his average this year, obviously being Medi sub for a lot of times, is very low. So he'd be an absolute bargain next year if he leaves for a Melbourne side, which I think he should. He's not getting the opportunity there. I think Fred got a lot of good players, but I would have thought maybe kind of like you could get a game in there. But there you go. So Scott Penderbury, opposed to watching this game, obviously Scott Penderbury number one, most trading player this week, and rightly so. He's under 600k. He had a couple of issues with a finger, back-to-back 50s, played forward, whereas Robert Harvey's come in. I think Penderbury came out and said that he's going to be playing midfield. I think, don't quote me on that. That's just what I've heard. I think he said that. And he'll be playing mid-half back. That's what we're hearing. So it's good. Good role for him, really cheap. And you're going to get a guy averaging 95 to 100 for the rest of the year as a forward. So lock and load. I've got him in, and I'm not hesitating in bringing him either. I could bring in Haynes for a bit cheaper, but I'd go ahead. Just bring in Pendles. Pendles is just ultra consistent, and I think he will be. Brodie Grundy, good to see the ruck pick back, as I said. Interesting to see how he goes with that neck injury. I think he'll be fine. I'm hoping for a 120-plus score as a guy that held him. I don't expect a 120. I expect probably somewhere around anywhere from 90 to 110, somewhere around there maybe. Could get an 80 and could even struggle. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. A lot of unknown, but I think they'll be fine, and you're going to need him at some point in your team anyway. He's definitely one of the top two rucks, so don't hesitate. If you're looking at bringing him in this week, I wouldn't hesitate and bring him in. Just get him, and you've got him and Gawn. You don't have to worry about your rucks the rest of the year. But if you want to wait a week or two, I certainly don't blame you at all. Taylor Adams, another underpriced option, priced about $7.23, I think he is. He's got a break even of 127 as well, so he's going to go down a bit. I'd wait a week, but if he shows something good this week, like a 110, 120 plus score, I dare say I would almost consider bringing him in over. Well, I probably would bring him in over Lockie Neal next week. Just with this, I just want to see how this shoulder goes next week. But if we hear good reports and the coaches and stuff, like Chris Fagan comes out and says there's no issues with Lockie Neal at all, don't be worried. Then I guess there's a bit more confidence. But I'll probably wait one more week anyway just to watch. But Adams is definitely another price option. If he gets a good score this week, definitely consider bringing him in because he's going to average his 105 plus 110, potentially 115 if he's at the peak of his powers like he was for more parts of last year. So we'll see. And Luke Ryan's another interesting one I've looked at. 5 of his last 6 scores have been over 90, including 300s, with one score I think was a 67, which is a poor score. But Griffin Logue being back and having Alex Pearce, it's been a while since Freo have had two big defenders back there. So it's going to be interesting to see if Luke Ryan goes back to, which I think he will, go back to an intercepting role and take a lot of marks back there and become the general back there. And we've seen him score really well in the past. So it could be a real sneaky pod option to bring in for a guy about, I think he was around 641, 642K or something. You could bring him in, just risk it. Fantasy is about fun. You can just risk it and bring him in, but you could watch it this week and see how he goes. And if he scores well, then it's not a bad option. But yeah, so we move on to North Melbourne Gold Coast at Blundstone Arena. So Will Phillips comes in. Tom Power has been managed, so that could be a forced trade for some coaches there. And Bailey Scott's been dropped, so that's good. If he stays dropped for a fantasy perspective, it could be good for any potential tags. You won't have to worry about Bailey Scott doing big guys like maybe a Kane Turner that you just have to sort of be like, oh, you might tag. But I think most guys like an Oliver or Dusty and whatever won't be too phased with a tag from Kane Turner if that happens. And then Gold Coast, they bring in Ben Ainsworth. Jeremy Sharp could be an interesting option at 221K, and Josh Corbett comes in. Chris Burgess has been dropped. Fiorini's been dropped as well as Amadi Southern. He can't catch a break. He's a bit like Connor Blakely. He needs to leave and get more opportunities. Not a bad player. And then David Swallow and Lockie Weller are both injured. So real trouble game for Gold Coast here. I think North could get this second win of the year. And yeah, there you go. Aaron Hall, amazing. He's been so good this year, averaging 122 since his concussion against Geelong. He hasn't gone under 98 when he's played a full game. And I think that was against the Crows, and that was his first full game that he played after he was a Medi sub, I think, the week before. And then he got a 98 last week, which against Brisbane, and they're restrictive. So he's just been insane. Who would have thought he would be averaging such high? Doesn't make sense. Averaging so much and just being a consistent performer week in, week out. And you can just rely on him. He's a perfect VC option because you can just put it on him. He's got over 120 how many times this year? And if he doesn't get a 120, you can just chuck your captain on a Tim Taranto or Took Miller or someone else. But he's just such a good loophole to have. And he plays the second game. He plays the first game on the Saturday. So if you can loophole him, that's definitely a great option. And that's what I'll be doing. Took Miller, number one captain option by obviously our pirate Calvin. So if you want to go check that, also the article, all articles on DT Talk. So make sure you go check that out. And he said, obviously, Took Miller is number one captain option. And I agree with him. Playing North Melbourne. Could be the first player to crack 900K this year. Got to break in 121, so he's got to get at least that to go up. I think he will get there. I think he'll get somewhere around 130, 135, maybe even more. And I think he will go over 900K. So if you're rocking with Took Miller, congrats to you. If you went Took Miller over Parish as well, which you got my work did as well, good call, I think, in the end. Yeah, Matt Rao, again, similar last week. Just keep an eye on him. If he gets a good score, I think you can bring him in. If you wanted to just chuck a rookie, like if you have got no money and you've got a guy like a Lazaro or a Brockman or a Finlay McRae, and you want to just upgrade them and put maybe a guy like a Trent Bianco or a Newcomb or a Bramble on your bench, and you can only get to Rao, I don't think it's the worst option in the world. He'll probably get you a 60 at the moment, but if he gets a good score this week, I think everyone's going to jump on. He's 460 something K. He went down to 30 odd K, 28K last week, so 464K. Sorry, that's what he is. So bargain next week if he gets a good score this week. And I think he could get a good score this week. It's North Melbourne. So, and Jeremy Sharp 221K. I think Warney tweeted about it before. I think I would almost go him over Dylan Williams. He's going to be in the team, I think, for a little bit with Swallow and Weller being out. 2 midfield spots open up. Could be a sneaky good option. I think you can play him on your field as well. I think he can get you a 50-plus score. I'd trust him over a guy like Dylan Williams and a Bramble and guys like that on your field. So just keep an eye on him. Could be a good option. I would bring him in because you can always wait a week on Dylan Williams. I usually say to people asking me about 170K rookies, I always say, unless there's a guy like Newcomb where you know he's coming in straight away and he's going to be very good, you can always wait a week to see if Williams scores well because Fantasia's come back as well. I haven't heard anyone talk about that. Fantasia's coming back in its couple of weeks, and Dylan Williams could fall out and they just bring him in. They just leave a Kane Farrell or something like that in the team instead. So he could only be in there for a week. So I'm not as confident as a lot of other people are on Dylan Williams. I'm going to wait this week and watch him and see how he goes. If he scores well and holds his spot, then I think you can launch at bringing him in because if he gets like a 90, which he could, I don't think he will, but he could, he's only going to go up to about 200K anyway. He's only going to go up not even 30K. So it's not the worst thing to wait 1 week I think it's almost smarter to wait a week on most of these 170k rookies, unless you need a 170k rookie to bring in. Then I think he's the best of the 170k rookies coming in. So there you go. But yeah, I'll talk about Dylan Williams, but we're meant to be talking about him next. So Port Sydney at the Adelaide Oval in the twilight game. So Todd Marshall and Dylan Williams come in as his debut, which I've just talked about then. Probably should talk about him more about in this game, but but yeah, I would go sharp over Williams. That's what I was trying to say. And Robbie Gray is injured, unfortunately, out to the probably majority of the home and away season. So unfortunately for him, and 250 games, well, that's bad break for that one. Lockie Jones has also been injured with his hamstring, so unfortunately for people that held on to him, he's a must trade, obviously. And Peter Lambs has been dropped, so if you're rocking with him, I almost went him. I was pretty much on the same page as Roy. I thought he was a good option to bring in as the solo ruck. I didn't do it because I had injuries and other concerns to do, but other concerns to attend to in my fantasy team. But if you jumped on him, I think he's about 560. So yeah, he rose about 100 or so K. So I think it was a lot better than going a Heaney. Let's say that, because I went Heaney and that was a disaster. I got a 60 and I got a 40, and I got his 31 points in the first quarter against St Kilda, and then he only ended up getting 30 odd points the rest of the game. So not great. Never again list for Isaac Heaney. So Caden Brand, Errol Gordon come into the side for Sydney. Logan McDonald, Louis Taylor, and Sam Wicks go out of the team. Sam Wicks being suspended. Dan Houston, still value at 584k. Another guy I'm watching. I brought him in last week for Harms. Maybe a bit of a wasted trade in a way, but I think Harms could be affected by the Viney tag, which we'll talk about in the next game. But Houston, still value. The shoulder injuries and stuff, could that be a potential issue? I think so. And just injuries in general. He's been injured a bit this year, but I think he's fine. He's 584k. At the worst case scenario, he's got a lowish break even. If he gets injured, you can always go him someone else, I guess. But you don't want to be bringing in someone that can get injured, obviously. But yeah, I would be. I wouldn't hesitate to bring him in if you're looking at Dan Houston. So he'll get a lot of cheap plus sixes across halfback over the last portion of the season. Dylan Williams, as I spoke about before, 170k rookie. I think he's the best of the 170ks coming in. So if you want to jump on him, then go ahead and do that. And Joel Amadi is almost a must-have. I think he's a must-have. Break even negative 29, very, very low break even, and 74.92 in his 2 games. He's going to be over 300k next week, and I think you can confidently play him on your field. Well, at least from what we've seen anyway, and for the next few weeks or so. If he obviously gets a bad score this week, then we may have to rethink that. But he hasn't shown any bad signs so far in his 2 games. So I think get him, bring him in. He'll make your money guaranteed. So there you go. Even if he gets injured on less than 10 touch, he doesn't do that. But he'll still make your money. So it just shows how good it is to have such a negative break even, such a low and a break even high into the negatives. Eston Melbourne. It's game on Saturday night at the MCG. Ned Cahill or Carl, however you say it, I still don't know how you say it. I'm pretty sure it's Cahill, but if you say Carl, I apologise. Tom Cutler is also out of the side, and Alec Waterman comes back in. So for those people that wanted him during the buys, that's a bit of a tough break. I know Roy again was one of those guys that needed him last week, and he didn't get into the team, and there you go. Kay Chandler and Sam Wiedemann are out of the side, and Jack Viney comes in. So I was going to talk about Parish first. I'll talk about Harms going off of that Viney thing. So could Harms be affected by this Viney thing? I think it could be. It could just send Petrarca forward. I guess we'll see what happens if it's Harms, Viney, and Oliver in the midfield. You also got Jimmy Jordan there and Tom Sparrow and a few other guys that might get some centre bounce. So I think Harms could potentially be on a bit more on a wing or a half forward flank, a bit like what Dunkley and guys like that have done, but could go up stoppages. That's why I got rid of him at the end of the day. But we'll see. We'll see what happens if he gets affected or not. If he does, I think you can trade him next week. You could trade him this week if you really wanted to, but I think there are bigger issues than Harms. And I got like Markov, for example, that you can get rid of him. Tom Phillips, another one needs to go. You can get rid of these guys and rookies before you get rid of Harms, but just a flag Viney back, so there could be a flag. Parish got an 84 last week. I think he bounced back. I think he'd be fine. But if he gets another 80, a play that you could consider going him down to a guy like a Lockie Neal or a Taylor Adams or a Patrick Dangerfield could net you 150, 200, 250k. You can put that on top of a guy like Poulter, and you can bring in, for example, you go Neil down to Dangerfield, you can bring in Pendlebury for an underpriced rookie, for example, so like next week, or you could bring in Neil and Adams for 2 rookies. Like if you got Jimmy Jordan or Harms, you could go Harms up to Adams and go, what's his name, Parish down to Neil. I'd rather Adams and Neil over Parish and Harms. I think just as long as Neil's okay. But that's just a play to consider. But I think you'd be fine. I think you won't even have to worry about it. But just an early prediction is something that you could do and an option you could consider. Jordan Ridley played his bit more of the role that we've seen at the start of the season last week. Had 7 kick-ins of the 13, which was good to see. I think Redmond had 4, and I think Heppel had 2 off the top of my head. I think it was, the 13. If he can show something again this week against Melbourne, priced under 560, I think he's around 559. Good option to bring in, I think could be a good option, especially if you've got a lot of cash. I got a guy like Markov, for example. I could just go sideways swap from Markov to Ridley. I think I'd rather Ridley in my team than Markov. But if Hearn does better, then that's another option to bring in. But and then Clayton Oliver, please. I brought him in for 2 games. He's got back-to-back 80s. He only got 2 scores under not 100 before I brought him in. I think I've cursed him, guys. I'm sorry. But hopefully I haven't. Hopefully he comes back and bounces back against the Bombers this week. I think he will. I think he should. Surely he was a top sort of 3 midfielder, 4 at the worst, but now he's looking more like a bottom 4 of the top 8 midfielders, if not maybe not even in the top 8 for some people. Some people might not even have him in. So surely Oliver gets back to his best this week, but we'll see. So the full squad should be announced. So I'll go through the games and I'll go through the squads for those as well. So let's have a look on the AFL app here. So the Hawks, Brent Daniels comes in. Lockie Ash is still is out as a medi sub still, so can't catch a break. Lockie Ash, he should be in the best 22, but they've just got so many good defenders, guys like Cumming and Whitfield and Haynes and guys like that in the team. So just tough break. And then Tom Green's also been dropped. So for a few guys rocking him, he's been dropped. So I think you have to figure out some plans if you've got him. Cole Hardigan, Denver Granger Barras makes his debut for the Hawks, and James Warp will come in. Connor Nash has been dropped. I think it was a medi sub. James Cousins has been dropped. Jarman Impey was injured, and Sean Burgoyne's been managed. I thought it was written in the stars next week for him to play his 400th game next week against Port, but now it's not going to be against Port. That would have been a cool story. He's 2 teams he's played for, Port and Hawthorn, in the same game. He plays his 400th game, but he's been dropped. He's been not dropped, managed. They'd never dropped Sean Burgoyne, I don't think, but managed. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so Nick Haynes, underpriced option. I think if you go between him and Pendles, I still think you go Pendles. You can go. Well, my best mate Ryan, he would definitely go Haynes this week. Then you go Pendles next week because he'd be like, we can get both in, or he'd just go a guy like Hind and Markov and bring in Hind and he'd go Hind and Markov or something to Haynes and Penderbury. But I think you go Penderbury over Haynes. That's just my opinion anyway. I think he'd be more consistent. But Haynes has been good, 24 marks over the last 2 weeks, and yeah, underpriced, still good option. I think it's 5.12 or somewhere around that vicinity. So you still bring him in. Got Hawthorn this week. Good matchup. But I'm just worried. I owned Haynes last year for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and he let me down in some games. I think Giants were really bad last year, so that's different. Or was it the year before? Can't remember. It just feels like last year went so quickly. Just it might have been 2019 when they played. It was the game where they got smashed by St Kilda in the final round. It might have been last year, but I can't remember. I think it was. But yeah, just a worry. If he doesn't get those marks, is he going to get you a good score? Just something to think about. Whereas Pendleton can get you a minimum, worst case scenario, 70 in any game if he plays midfield. Tim Taranto, great captain option. If you don't have Tookmiller, like a lot of us don't, Tim Taranto is the best option, I think, for you. And I'm going Aaron Hall, vice captain into Taranto. I've had that all week. I think it's the best option, and I think it's a great play. If you want to go different, you can go a guy like Josh Kelly, who looks to be fit. He's in the squad, so he should be fine. Touchwood, he's not laid out or anything, but he should be fine. He'll be good against Hawthorn. Lockie Whitfield will also be good against Hawthorn. I think having a lot of Giants this week will prove we'll have good dividends, especially the MCG, wide open ground. Hopefully the weather's not too bad on Sunday. It's meant to be raining, or meant to be showers and stuff like that. Let's see. As I said, Josh Kelly, like if you feel great options to still bring in this week as well. If you don't have them, I brought them in over the buys. I think they're great buys. I think you still are both great buys. Kelly 800k, you could maybe go someone else over him. You got like a Pendles is what's he 208k cheaper than him. So I'd probably go. I'd definitely go Pendles over Kelly now. I think 200 and something k is a lot of money. But if you're looking for a guy that expensive, I think Kelly's still a good option. Mid forward should be good for us here. Denver Granger Brass, 260K, bit expensive for a rookie, especially a guy who hasn't scored too great in the VFL. But if he comes and gets it like a 90 score, he's got low break even, then we can have a different conversation next week. But yeah, I wouldn't be bringing him in unless you really love Denver Granger Brass. And Tom Phillips, he needs to go, man. If you're still rocking with Tom Phillips, please do yourself a favour and get rid of him. I got rid of him in round 12. I remember the first quarter, I think, against Sydney. I think he got an 80 that game. He was on like 30-something points. And I was like, oh, why did I get rid of Tom Phillips? I should have just kept him over a rookie. But then he just gets he has a quarter or two where he only gets 5 points combined in 2 quarters, which is just, he goes missing. And Darcy Parish was around the same price. Ben Keys was, I think, the same price or cheaper than him. And Ben Keys averaging 109.8. I know none of us predicted that Ben Keys, I'm a Crow supporter, I never thought Ben Keys is going to be this good even when we picked him up. I thought he was going to be just a solid contributor just in the 22, and then maybe when someone better comes in, they replace him. But Ben Keys has been outstanding for the Crows. And as a Crow supporter, I'm grateful we got him in. But Tom Phillips and him will price the same. Phillips averaging 74.4 for the year. Ridiculous. What's that? Nearly 35 points less than Ben Keys a game. We had him and De Goey as our top 2 forwards at the start of the year, and obviously De Goey didn't prove as good as what we thought, but he's maybe coming good. So hopefully we can consider him when he comes back from his suspension. But yeah, get rid of Phillips. If you've got Poulter, keep Poulter. Poulter's at least on a wing and actually scoring well, so I'd be keeping him instead. So West Coast Bulldogs, Optus Stadium. So Tim Kelly, Jeremy McGovern, Jack Patricelli, Brad Shepherd, Luke Shuey coming to the squad. Is that all? Yep. And then Harry Edwards has been dropped. Luke Foley dropped. Jermaine Jones dropped. Zach Langdon dropped. O'Neill dropped. And Nelson dropped. So Luke Edwards holds his spot. That's something for me to think about now. I wasn't sure he's going to hold his spot. I thought he was going to be out of the team. And I thought it was going to be probably one of the most unlucky omissions I've seen. But Luke Edwards has got a negative break even. That makes me think a bit about that, because they've dropped a guy like Jermaine Jones and guys like Nelson to play Luke Edwards. They must really like him. And you can play him on field as well. You can play him on field. Do I want Pendles, though? That's going to be interesting. I'll have to decide that. But yeah, so if you're looking at bringing Luke Edwards in, bring him in. Definitely bring him in. I think he's a good option. He's still got a negative break even. And yeah, so Riley Garcia, Ed Richards come in. Yes, Rourke Smith has been dropped. Nothing against Rourke Smith, but if you're bringing Lockie Hunter in, this is good news. Maybe Ed Richards plays on a wing, but they played Rourke Smith because it was good for their system. Lockie Hunter might be 100% on a wing. That makes me really excited for Hunter this week. He could be big this week. So if you're looking at Hunter as an underpriced option, he's a good option. I still think I'd just rather Pendles, but because Ed Richards could still be on a wing, but this could be good. Mitch Wallace is a Medi sub, and Hayden Crozier has been dropped as well. That's interesting. So must be good for Riley Garcia. He got concussed. They brought him straight back in. So again, he could be a decent option. Would I prefer Garcia over Dylan Williams potentially? Because I think Garcia it's shown he's come straight back into the side, so he might actually still be a good option to bring in over Williams. I think he's shown that Bulldogs has shown they might want to get him into the squad. So it's an interesting option. I think he's going to have a higher break even than everyone else at 120 in case he got very low score because he got concussed, but. Yeah, certainly a guy you could look at. But anyway, Andrew Gaff, the clan's back together. My man Gaffy, head tilt. I call him head tilt. I just think it's a bit funny when Calvin calls him head tilt. But hopefully he's one game with Shuey this year. He got a 154 against Port. Port aren't the easiest team. I know they won by a bit, but Gaff always scores well when the clan's all together. I don't know why that is really. He's in the same sort of position. So I guess Shuey likes passing the ball. I think Dom Sheed, because I say every time I see Dom Sheed doesn't pass Gaff the ball. I know a lot of West Coast fans about it's fine because maybe guys don't really rate Gaff, but I think Gaff's good and one of my favourite players, and I hope he scores well, please. I've had him for a while. I've had 4 scores under 100 in a row. So for me and for the other coaches that got him and that have held him, please score well this week with all the clan back. Come on. Shanahan, value option, breaking to 59 this week, price just over 600. Besides his injury, where he did his hamstring a calf or something, he's averaging, I think, near or over 100. So he's playing very well. Obviously, the concern is he could get injured during a game, but I think you just go for it anyway. It's only 600K. Lockie Hunter, as I spoke about before, good option. Rourke Smith being dropped. I think that could be good for him. And the final game, Carlton and Adelaide at Marvel Stadium again with the roof being open. I really hope it's not, but Petrovsky Seaton, Mark Murphy, and Lockie Plowman come into the squad, and also come into the team. Luke Parks has been dropped. Nick Newman's been dropped. Okay, that's sort of. I didn't realise he'd be dropped. Zach Fisher and Mark Pittner are both injured as well. So no Josh Honey. So if you're looking at him, so don't bring him in now. Luke Brown comes in, good as Crow support. We needed him back in. On a side note, Wild's been dropped and McPherson's been dropped as well. So Scholl comes back into the side. I saw he was lined up on a wing. So hopefully Scholl can play well. Because I love Scholl. Not as a fantasy option. I think he's just a great player. I think he's a very, very young Whitfield, or he's got the potential to be a guy like Whitfield if he gets the wing role and he plays a lot of game time. But that's just a side note for any Crows fans with him. So Ben Keys been amazing this year, as I talked about, but a little bit before, averaging just under 110. Great option if you want to bring him in. If his scores were Oliver, if we saw Oliver hadn't gone under 110 his last four, and he was priced 800, we'd be like, great option. It's just with all of us, I'm in the same boat as well. I think the same thing. It's like Ben Keys. You can't bring Ben Keys in, but you can. You can. He's averaging near 110. So I think he's a great option. I think he's very similar to Lions. He hasn't scored under 90. He hasn't scored under 90 all year. His worst scores are 91. And all of his 90 scores came, I think, within the first 6 weeks. I think he got 3 or 4 of them in the first 6 weeks. But then since then, he's gone bananas. I think he's only got 2 scores under 100 since around 6 or something. So he's been great. If you want to bring him in, very, very good pod to bring in. And Roy O'Brien, no Pitney this week, could be big this week. He's only up against Tom de Koning. So if you got rid of him, unfortunately, then that's not too great. So let's get into a couple of questions. So Ryan says, I reckon Miller gets a bigger score this season, 170 plus, no Lockie Well or David Swallow as well. Yeah, I do agree with that, Ryan. I would say that he's on track for a big score against North. Then you can go big this week. If you've got him in, you put him. If you've got options on your bench, you wouldn't hurt to go VC with a Took Miller. If you've got an option in a later game where you can safely loophole him, if not, you just put the C on him. Don't even worry about the vice captain, because I think he'll be fine. He plays high game time, he does everything. And then Ryan also said, not sure if Edwards scores well this week with Bulldogs on a wing is not easy. I think all Shuey, etc., takes lots of points away from Edwards, but we see. Yeah, I think it's a good point. Ray's a good point. I think negative 20 something break even. I think it's negative 24 break even, or negative 21 or something of around there anyway. I think if he gets a 50, he's still going up over 300k, and he's still going to make you a lot of money. So certainly I'll look at, but I'll decide that later on. But we'll see. So Anthony sent me this question. Let me just get to the question he sent me on Twitter. So he asked me. So he said, which two out of Newcombe, Bianco, Amadi, and Bramble should I play on field? Currently gone Amadi and Bianco with Pendles in midfield. Don't like it, but I feel Amadi is a worthy F6. Yeah, Amadi's definitely a worthy F6 for sure. Bianco, Bramble, or Newcombe. I think you still trust, because Newcombe held his spot, which is good. Newcombe and Bramble both held their spots for Hawthorn, which is good, makes them more money. Newcombe showed last week he can get you 20, so it wouldn't be him. It'd be Bianco or Bramble. If there's a way that you can loophole Bianco and Bramble and put Bianco on your bench and safely have, if he scores good, put someone on your field like a Brockman, for example, that I've got, I could do something like that. If I didn't want to play Stocker or Highmore, I could loophole something like that. You could do that, but if you can't do that, I would probably lean towards Bianco, because I think against Freo is a better matchup than against the Giants, because Giants are restrictive because they do like to chip the ball around a lot. So I would go Bianco and Amadi there, but if you can safely loophole Bianco on your bench, you could loophole Bianco and put Bramble on your field. And if Bianco scores well, you can play Bianco and put someone on the bench not playing. If Bianco scores poorly, you can play Bramble. So that's what I would personally do, and what I would look at doing. So there you go. Yeah, I just can't play Marty on field this week, and I could do the loophole and just put Stocker or Highmore on bench, but I just think Stocker and Highmore will be better than all of those guys. I think Stocker's been consistent over the last 6 weeks, and Highmore's got a good role. So there you go. So that's all your questions. So there you go. If you want to send your questions in on the written article below, I'll answer them. If you want to send your questions in just below here as well, I'll answer them. And on Twitter and Instagram, links are in the description below for all those. So my trades this week, pretty much hinted at them all throughout the thing, but I'm going Flynn. on my bench. Thank you very much, Flinny, for your service. Been a great servant, made a lot of money. Go him down on Amadi on my ruck bench. Can't play Amadi this week. I've got to wait, hopefully, for a guy like Ned Reeves to come in, or next week, just even get a 170k ruck and put Amadi on my field, which I could do that. And then Lazaro goes up to Penalty, which means I put Newcomb on my bench, which is good. I think it's a big upgrade on my field. So, and Pendles, I think it'll be very good. I think Pendles and Amadi probably the most selected combo this week. Everyone getting on them, so definitely get on them. I've considered Haynes, but I think Pendles is a better option. Hearn's also another guy I've slightly toyed with, considered, whatever you want to say. But yeah, I think I'll go Pendles. I think Pendles is a safer option. I think he's the better option as well. So there you go. So anyway, thank you for tuning in live for the weekend forecast. It's gone a bit longer than what I thought, 40 minutes. So it's a good long one, this one. More games, so a bit more to talk about. But thank you for tuning in live or on replay, if you watch on replay. If you want to subscribe to the channel, it'd be very much appreciated. Also, leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. Follow me at all my social medias in the description below. Make sure you go and check the written article on DT Talk. The link for that is also in the description below. And make sure you get your captains and all your fantasy trades and everything ready before round 15. I think we've got about just under 3 hours, I think. We've got just over 2.5 hours. So make sure you get your team sorted before the round starts. And, yeah, good luck for round 15. And I'll see you guys next week for the round 16 weekend forecast. So I'm out. Cheers.